Hi guys, Slime here. Welcome back to my channel. Um, how are you guys doing? Sorry, I'm like filming kinda towards. Yeah, that looks good. Sorry, I was just seeing what the lighting switch is. Ugh. So sorry for like not uploading forever, guys. I've been slack-a-lacking, but I'm gonna try to not do that. Okay, so I have good news. I've lost 10 pounds and I'm officially now a skinny legend and I'm the size of a toothpick. Don't catch me turning to the side because I'll disappear. And something I wanted to do was go over my I wanted to do a video on fat phobia. Because I grew up fat and then I lost all the weight and I got fat again because of depression and other stuff I'll talk about. But, do I have the pictures. But yeah, so I lost all the weight and I have the pictures to prove it. Sorry, I had to scroll. Okay, here we go. Here's a picture of me, skinny, and here's another picture of me, skinny. And you're like, Slime, like, what happened? I hated myself and I gave up on life, so I was like, I stopped working out and, eating right. Because I was like vegan for like 5 years. So yeah, I'm getting back to being a vegan now. I'm like at the vegetarian state, like. So yeah, I'm gonna get back to being a vegan, and I lost 10 pounds, and yeah, so I just kind of gave up on life and like didn't care if I was fat because it's like I'm miserable anyway. Like, why should I care what I eat? Like, dark stuff like that. So yeah, I want to do a video about fat phobia. So to prove I was once a skinny legend and I still am, I showed those pictures, and then I'll talk about my experience being fat growing up, how people treat me skinny, the excess skin, which no one talks about, which is like the most heartbreaking thing, because you lose all this weight, and you're like, oh, finally look normal, and then you just have like hanging skin, which sucks. And then I'll talk about being fat now, and I'll get into my weight and all that. So yeah, that's gonna be another video I'll come up with, is a rant of people being fat phobic, because my number one critique of it is people seem to be like, oh, it's not healthy to be overweight, which it isn't, but at the same time, it's like a fake concern to just basically call fat people gross. Like, it's not healthy to be fat. And you're like, kind of gross. And it's like, it's not healthy to smoke cigarettes, but I don't see you going on a crusade to critique people smoking cigarettes, because as someone who's smoked not like tons of cigarettes, but I have smoked cigarettes. Yeah, I don't know what damage I done to my body or my lungs, because I am not. I don't have X-ray vision. But when you see an overweight person who eats themselves to the point where you can see the unhealthiness, I know not every time someone's overweight is because they eat themselves to that point. It could be like a health thing. Like, I grew up with a friend, and they're still a good friend of mine, but when they were younger, they were a bit chunkier, but because they had to take steroids because of a health condition. So the steroids made them retain weight, and they're skinny legend now and super beautiful, but like, so I hate when people make, one, assumptions about people's weight and why they're overweight. Two, this fake concern of care when they don't care that people are getting drunk every weekend, which definitely probably isn't healthy for you. And they don't care when people are smoking cigarettes, like not walking around in a major city with a spray bottle, spraying people out at nightclubs, being like, that's not healthy. And two, it's just like, it seems like you just want to say fat people are gross and make fun of fat people, but you don't have the balls to say it. Because, like, I care that people are unhealthy because I care about them. But I'm not going around being like, you shouldn't eat that, or you seem to drink too much. Like, I don't care. I would give a friend a helpful critique if I thought they were doing something in excess, but I would do it with love. And that's another thing. No one who ever talks about people's weight ever does it in a loving way. It's always like a backhanded kind of like critique. Like, oh my gosh, you're working so hard and you're just kind of, a little overweight, but keep up the good work. It's like, you kind of just like say, you're fat, well, keep working hard so I think you're less disgusting to look at. So yeah, I'm going to get into that whole topic. I'm just giving you a taste of what my thoughts are. Because if you truly care about overweight people, just like what I needed when I was overweight was, one of my friends got me to be vegan. So you don't have to be vegan to lose weight, because I have a relative that lost 70 pounds. And all they did was make sure they ate, like, I think like around 2,000. Well, whatever your body's supposed to eat. Like, I don't know if it's 2,000, but look it up. And they just didn't overeat, and they lost 70 pounds. And they're like amazing looking. So you don't have to be a vegan, but you can obviously do it in whatever lifestyle fits for you. Because they're not vegan. I just lost all the weight being a vegan. I just like being a vegan. So what I could use is proper nutrition education. Drinking water's great. And number 3, like a friend. Like, when you're growing up, like, fat, it's just such a lonely thing, because going to pool parties makes you feel so insecure, and, like, you may be like, well, you did that to yourself. It's like, yeah, I guess drug addicts abuse drugs, but you don't mock them for abusing drugs, because obviously when someone abuses addictions, and this is another thing people never want to talk about, my addiction to food is outwardly visible. But we don't want to talk about how you're addicted to bad friends, addicted to toxic relationships, addicted to sugary sweets that aren't good for you, but like you just have a good enough metabolism that it doesn't show. Like, so, or like addicted to like anything. You could be addicted to anything. Like, that's the human condition. Like, we're so easily fallen, right? So like, I think like a friend, because you just feel lonely and just feel like so unloved. And that, and the whole dating scene, oh my gosh, I could get into that. Yeah, but like, those are the 3 things I would suggest if you truly care about someone, is just, and another thing is like, people know they're overweight. So like, when people talk about like, oh, you're fat, blah, 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 it's like, yeah, I know. That's unhealthy. It's like every fat person doesn't know this. Okay. Alright. So, what I'm talking about, and what I'm talking about today is the problem. I got on a tangent, but whatever. What I'm talking about today is the problem with the online left. I'm going to make this clear. The right is a billion times worse than the people I'm talking about today. There's such a niche like segment of the internet, which the internet is just a big conglomerate of all the weirdos in the world. You could literally find pretty much every subculture of everything in the world on the internet. And I kind of get pissed at people that like kind of portray that the internet's real life. In real life, I don't know anyone like this. I'm the only one that's concerned with like internet culture, because I find it like fascinating. Like, how people find like serial killers fascinating? Mine's like online culture and just how crazy people act there. So I remember I was listening to Christina P., which is Tom Segura's wife. They're both comedians. Talk to Dr. Drew on their podcast, talking about, oh, well, did you hear about trans ageism? Which, if you know the story, and I've only seen one story talking about trans ageism, which is this I don't know, I'll just, an older gentleman that transitioned and wants to be perceived as a 6-year-old girl, and I'm pretty sure found a elderly couple to take care of this fully grown, now transitioned to female man. Well, they're like a female now, but you know what I mean. And Christina was like blowing this up, being like, oh my gosh, is this going to be the new thing? I have not heard of anyone else that is trans and trans ages. Like, I identify as a certain age, even though I'm not that age. That was the only one case. But, like, Christina pretended like this is the new woke thing. No one cares about that, and it's not in woke culture. So another thing that gets me mad is like when people pretend leftist circles are what they are, but they don't even know them or aren't even in them. And plus, like, how many of those people can you name? And this is where I get into the point that the internet is a fake place where all the weirdos can get together. If I, let's say, found a Facebook group where 50 people are members of it and they talked about bathing in feces, could you imagine if I blew it up to be like, well, this is American culture. People like to bathe and poop. You'd be like, no, you just found 50 weirdos on Facebook who like to bathe and poop. It's like, yeah, you just found like one weirdo that decided, I don't care if you're trans, but like the ages and thing, like whatever, you want to be a 6-year-old. I think that's what the gentleman was alluding to, that they're a female and they identify as a 6-year-old girl. Anyone gets raised by an elderly couple, do your thing. I literally could care less. But to act like that is somehow a phenomenon because I found it in the internet, that's what pisses me off when we're talking about like certain subcultures of the internet. It's like, just because you find these cultures on the internet doesn't mean they're happening in real life. Because most people are just normal and they probably aren't terminally online like me and don't know anything about this. So yeah, I want to make it clear, the right is a billion times worse. It has every ism, every like hateful person there. And what I'm talking about now is just kind of a small subculture of lefty spaces, which isn't really like every lefty space. It's just these people happen to be left wing and super weird. Okay, so the problem with the online left I see is the lack of empathy, but the most sensitive sense of empathy, but they also do like the cruelest things. And let me explain. For example, there was this lefty YouTuber who was accused of basically having sexual, like, he traded nudes with a fan. Turns out the person probably wasn't a fan. Another lefty YouTuber who I think literally apologized for using the word crazy or nanners because they thought it was ableist or something. So literally apologized for that. Accused this other lefty YouTuber of having a sex call. And obviously he was being tongue-in-cheek, but he basically said, like, you're pulling a R. Kelly here with your fans, when the worst case scenario is this lefty YouTuber traded nudes with their fan, which that could be debated. But let's say that's the worst thing that happened. That's not a lefty, that isn't a sex call. So this person refused to apologize, refused to like even make a adjustment that they could have been wrong because they jumped the shark before all the facts came out. And this is the same person who apologized for using the word nanners or like crazy or something. Like, it's insane. So I'm going to give another example. And this is where I'm talking about, like, they have so much empathy that they'll apologize for saying the word crazy because that's ableist, which I don't think it's ableist. And coming from someone who's had many mental breaks and psychotic breakdowns and has BPD, I don't care. That's stupid. Another example is I was watching TikTok, and Antidote Andy over here. I was watching TikTok and this like a gingerbread man, a redheaded fellow came onto my TikTok talking about like how he's mixed and I think his dad's Korean And I think his mom's like Caucasian. But you obviously see he's mixed. Now, this is where it gets interesting because people who want to be on the vigilance for Asian fishing. Where's the Asian fishers? Who's out here claiming they're Asian when they're really not? I saw someone literally put in the comments that being ginger is a recessive gene, and no Asian person has the recessive gene for ginger. So you're lying, and you're not actually part Asian. But this dude looked fully blown mixed. And I'm pretty sure he uploaded pictures of like his parents later. But someone was so concerned with trying to pinpoint if someone was faking being Asian, they actually called a mixed person not Asian. Which I find that completely offensive. Like, if someone isn't Asian and or any mixed race and is claiming it, maybe just like let it be, because a lot of people can be white passing or maybe just not have the full structure of those features. But this guy obviously looked part Asian, like half and half, like even though he was a full-blown ginger. So you just kind of look foolish when you call out an Asian person for not being Asian enough and saying they're Asian fishing. And now, on the flip side, I saw this girl who was cosplaying, like, it's basically like an anime girl, like, just wearing, like, a schoolgirl shirt, like a schoolgirl skirt, like, thigh highs. And she had dolly makeup. Like, her eyes kind of look big like a doll. And she has some, like, anime t-shirt on. I full-blown saw people in the comments being like, this is Asian fishing. And I'm like, what do they mean? And the girl replied to it, and she's like, how am I Asian fishing? Like, this is literally eye makeup that makes your eyes look big. And there is, I've heard, that there is a style of makeup that makes your eyes look more Asian styled, but her eyes look full-blown, like, anime eyes. Like, very, like, almost dog-like, right? And everyone's like, this is culture appropriation, and you really need to pipe down and listen to POC voices. I'm like, I get that, but also, sorry, a car's passing by. But also, let me say this, when does you presuming because someone has a certain subculture of dress, like, isn't that also kind of, like, racist? And let me explain. So this girl was wearing a schoolgirl skirt, anime t-shirt, and thigh highs, and had dolly makeup to make her eyes look big. And she obviously loves Asian culture. Okay. And she's a white girl. She never claimed to be mixed. She never claimed to be Asian. She's obviously just a fan of the culture. And this is where I get into the culture of a certain society almost becomes so popular that everyone can almost take a claim of that culture. And let me explain. Like, what I think it was Wrangler jeans. I don't look it up. It's a certain type of jean that was produced in America that became so popular that people were spending close to like $70 on these jeans that weren't worth $70 because they loved these jeans so much. So that's kind of how I feel about, like, anime culture. Or, for a good example, K-pop culture. Like, people literally, like, having meltdowns on, like, TikTok. Being like, oh my gosh, like, BTS, like, chicken nuggets are coming out. If you're not a fan, don't get them. And they're obviously American and not Korean. But they love the culture so much. And the culture's become popular with so many different cultures around the world. That I would say, not that they have claim to it, but I wouldn't say it's inappropriate to like the culture because it's almost grown bigger than itself. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm pretty sure PlayStation originated from Japan, but I have a PlayStation hat on right now. So that's what I'm saying. Like, it's almost like such a culture shift that everyone loves it so much now that it's almost like it isn't, like, directly linked back to them. It's almost like a worldly kind of culture and desire because it's become that big. Obviously, the roots are still the roots, and you should pay homage and respect to them and respect the people who created it. But that's why I was talking about the jeans. Like, these are American jeans, but other countries are going insane that they're almost like vintage and people buy them for like high prices when they're just American jeans. Like, it isn't big to us. So this is where I get into, is it almost a kind of a racist trope to assume this girl is Asian fishing when she doesn't claim to be Asian? She's just a white girl who loves Asian culture. She doesn't look Asian, because some people do. I heard of one of the famous TikTokers, like, claim to be half Asian, like, would do a style of makeup that make her eyes look Asian styled. I don't know what the style's called. That is Asian fishing, and that is wrong. But if you're just, like, an anime weeb girl who likes dressing up as an e-girl of an Asian flair, like, I don't think that's wrong. And let me explain. Is it racist because you're now what? Asian people don't dress like that. That's a subculture of a dress style of, like, anime culture, street fashion, mixed into one. I'll give you an example. A lot of people who are non-Americans, when they have family members visit America, I've had multiple people tell me this, first thing they ask is, like, does everyone there have a gun? Or do they dress like this? And for example, it'd be like, what if, like, someone from, like, let's say France, asked their French family when they came home, it's like, does every American there wear a cowboy hat and have a gun? So, and I'll take it a step further. For me, I'm gay, and in the gay scene, unfortunately, there is a culture of doing drugs and partying. Now, if someone was talking about doing blow on the weekend and having a bunch of sex, and someone accused them of, like, queer baiting, I'm like, so do you think everyone just does a bunch of drugs or, like, has bangs each other in the gay community? So that's kind of what I'm getting the point at with, like, this is Asian fishing. It's like, do you think all Asian people dress up as anime girls? Because then, on the flip side, people get mad, and they should, because it's gross, but people will say to Asian women, like, oh my god, you look just like the anime character of this, or you look like an anime character, which is offensive. And then, like, it would be like if someone said to me, like, oh my gosh, you're just like this gay character, because they're, like, super flamboyant and, like, have rhinestones or something. And it's like, are you just calling me, like, a low-key fairy? Like, are you calling me, like, flamboyant? I am flamboyant, but the fact that, like, I wouldn't find that offensive, but if they, like, let's say just a normal kind of, like, I've been, like, hanging out with some gay guys that are almost, like, straight passing. Now, I have great gaydar, I can tell they're obviously, like, bi and gay centered, but they do very look straight passing. So if someone went up to me, them, and was like, knew they were gay, but they don't look gay, and it's like, oh my gosh, you just like this one character that wears juicy rhinestoned booty shorts and wears a crop top and has a limp wrist and a handkerchief scarf, I'd be like, yes, some gay people do dress that way. That's kind of stereotypical and offensive to think that we're a characterization of a subgroup of our culture. So you know what I mean? So that's what I'm saying, like, sure, do some Asian people dress like that? Sure, I mean, look at, like, Japanese street fashion. Like, they have so much cool influences in that culture. But to act like that's how every Asian person dress, and then on the flip side to be like, oh, you're dressing like an anime girl, that means you're Asian fishing? Do you get where I'm going with, like, how this is kind of in its own sense really offensive? So you have people who are calling mixed people not Asian. You have people being like, this is Asian subculture. You're Asian fishing, which is what other people get in trouble for, just calling normal Asian people, like, anime style girls. And I'm like I used the gay example. Someone just assumed because I'm gay, I must be, like, doing a bunch of drugs on the weekend, having sex. Like, I haven't had sex in 5 years. They would be totally off track there. So, like, this is what I'm saying. Like, you almost become so woke, it's like horseshoe theory, where you're trying to, like, police people's race make all these like rules about just dressing up and appreciating Asian culture that you're kind of almost being offensive by saying like, oh, so you're Asian? Well, oh, do you dress like an anime girl? It's like, that's not how Asians dress. Like, you look in Japan, no one dresses like that. And it'd be the same thing of like people in a foreign country be like, oh, you're American, so you dress like a cowboy and have a gun. I'd be like, no. And some people do dress like a cowboy and have a gun, and like some Asian people do like this sort of street fashion culture. Like, so you know what I mean? This is what I'm talking about. And no, this is such a small group of people who I generally have the heart in the right place. They want people to stop appropriating cultures. They want people to stop, claiming they're mixed when they're not. They want people to stop riding off the backs of POC and minorities, but they kind of get lost in their actions when they end up being offensive, and it seems like no one calls them out because, like, I don't know, like, no one wants to say, like, oh, wait, sorry. I'm just seeing how much time I have left. It's not focusing. So no one really wants to be the person to be like, hey, this kind of doesn't make sense, and you're kind of offensive for claiming this, and then be like, you're speaking over POC. It's like, I mean, does that logic stand with Candace Owens? Like, do I have to listen to whatever Candace Owens says because she's a POC? Obviously not. And same thing with, like, of a gay person, like, Milo Yiannopoulos doesn't claim he's gay anymore, but, like, would I claim you're speaking over gay people because you don't agree with my own Yiannopoulos? Like, so yeah, that's my thought on, like, this whole almost, you're, like, so woke you almost become, like, the bad thing we could criticize the right for. And like I said, such a small culture, it's infinitesimal against the real racists that are on the right, not the leftists who are just so woke they make bad actions and make us look bad sometimes. But yeah, no, the real racists are on the right, and just people being like this just makes us look stupid. It's not like the worst thing in the world. And this is where I want to get into another thing I saw. Other people critiquing their own, okay, so they're having Avatar Last Airbender on Netflix. They're having a live action, which is going to be trash, because live actions of any anime or cartoon is always trash, except for rare examples. And I saw leftists on Twitter, and I think the biggest offender of this is Chaos is Mel. And Vosh did a debate with her, and she's a Korean trans girl. I think she's non-binary. She's a Korean non-binary trans girl. She'll call out anyone for anything. And there's a meme, everyone memes of her, because she denies the Uyghur genocide in China. I don't know about that, but let's say you have, like, your thoughts on it. She literally made a meme that be like, genocide is bad, uwu, and she'll put, like, a pleading smiley face. So I saw Chaos is Mel on Twitter literally critiquing the races of the whoever is on Netflix, like whoever they casted for the live action. So there's this indigenous girl that's going to play Katara, and like, she's too white. And like, I would say Katara is probably like one shade darker to her. She obviously looks indigenous and has a darker skin tone. Not as dark as Katara's, but I'm saying like one shade less darker. And everyone's like, this is just like Brooklyn Heights again, where they get like white passing, like POC actors to play these roles. That is a valid criticism, but at the same time, you don't have to be mean about it. Like, you're almost dissecting this poor girl's race